This morning we asked the question, is South Africa a better place to live in than it was 20 years ago? VOC reporter Imogen Vollenhoven spoke to members of the public to find out their views on Freedom Day.
Well, because for one, we have the ability to be in a country now where everyone's equal, and even if we're not all treated that way, at least it comes from the point where we are all that way. As a single mother, I'm able to adopt a baby and have an amazing life, and all of that wouldn't be possible if we hadn't been where we are today.
Definitely. I think the freedom for people to live as they can and express themselves is really good, and to not be repressed as they were is awesome. That we can all walk in the same streets and the same shops. I wasn't around back when it wasn't allowed, so I didn't see that, but I can't imagine it any other way.
No, the government has just got up. You hear every day the things on the news, what they are stealing from the people. I mean, Parliament, it's pathetic. I get sick to my stomach talking about it, so it's not a better place.
It's better than before. Everything is better. South Africa is a place to live now.
Not better. Everything is going like we were living the life of Zimbabwe now. Everything is going backwards. Everything is expensive. We live in a corrupt world.
South Africa, it is a better place. It's just the corruption. That's the only thing that is bad in South Africa.
Definitely is. I suppose it depends on your attitude. I moved to Australia to think that that's the way to go. And every country has got its own challenges. So I came back and my life changed after I got born again. After that, my entire perspective changed about the country, about life, about everything in general. And only then I realized that all other countries also have their own challenges. So South Africa is an amazing place. And currently, I believe until the rapture, South Africa is going to be the place in terms of violence, in terms of job security, in terms of natural disasters. It is the safest place to be. So yes, I love my country.
Well, there isn't as much segregation as there was before. Jobs are being handed out more on merit now than on the colour of your skin. Schooling is a lot better now. Yeah, I think it's a better place.
I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's better than people rioting in the streets for equality. But I would say the fact that I can work where I work today is a result of democracy and equal opportunity based on skill, not necessarily race. So, yeah.
I think we have seen some positive changes come about during the last 20 years. Yes, I do believe that. I think it takes time to see it, to see the positive output. But yes, I do think there have been some really good things that have come out of the last 20 years of reform, if that's the word that I'm looking for.
Yes, I do. Because I think people have become more tolerant of each other. I mean, it's not exactly the way we want it to be yet, but it's definitely better.
Next up on our show, we find out more about the building of an inclusive society from the head of the program at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, Stanley Henkeman, who is on the line. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, South Africa, are we in a better situation today than we were 20 years ago?
Wow, that's a difficult question to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer would be yes. Just on a very practical, on a very basic level, we are a freer society. There's no doubt about that. If you look from the vantage point of many, many poor South Africans, we are better off. For many millions of people who have lived in shacks now have RDP houses. And yes, one can argue that maybe it's not the best quality, all of that. But just on that very basic level, yes, we are better off. We certainly have come a long way. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's also a qualified yes, because while those external things have changed for many people, the fact of the matter is that as a society, we still have many strides to make, and so superficially. And I really don't want to downplay the progress we've made, but just on a superficial level, yes. But I think when it comes to relations between people, given the fact that we have been deeply divided across racial, cultural, and other lines, we still have a very long way to go as far as that is concerned. And I think our biggest challenge right now is the fact that economically we have not come a long way. And yes, the country is doing well economically. Our GDP and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, those things are doing well. But actually, we have the shameful record that we are the most unequal society in the whole world. Now, that's not something to be proud about.
Indeed. Of course, we've heard over and over again over the past 20 years that the legacy of our previous dispensation, that's the apartheid regime, is not the cause, but it at least has been, like one could even say, the root of many of these issues, with inequality being entrenched so early on, and it's still very difficult to kind of untie those knots. Do you think there's any truth in that, and how do we go forward in trying to alleviate that kind of issues that we are sitting with?
Yeah, I have to agree with you that we really have not done too well in terms of dealing with the legacy of the past. But having said that, I think one needs to understand that these things are structural. They're systemic, and it's not just a matter of changing a law and everything falls into place. So I think, in a sense, we were over-optimistic in 1994, thinking that things will correct itself, that there's enough goodwill in the country, and that the reconciliation program, that everybody would buy into it. And while, we all spoke reconciliation and all of us loved Madiba across the divides, I mean, people still yearn for the Madiba era, I think the truth is that people who have been secured economically, who hold the wealth and the resources, while they bought into the concept of reconciliation, I think they didn't come to the party in terms of saying, so how do we make the society more equitable? How do we share? And when we talk about share, we're not saying people must give up everything they have. But I think that's where we missed the beat. That people were not prepared to say, okay, so I've benefited. So how do I, at the very least, to stand back and allow others, But what happened, sadly, is that many of the people who, because of the racial segregation and because of the opportunities afforded to some, were not prepared to stand back, and in fact their businesses flourished. They did better because the world now opened for them. The markets were available to them, and so it is sad, and I'm putting it very mildly, that people still today say that I've worked hard for what I've got. Of course, I'm not going to deny that, but what I am taking issue with is the fact that people didn't stand back and say, okay, so what is it that I need to do in order to allow those who have been left behind to at least get some of the benefit? As a teacher in 1994, I made a conscious decision that, okay, I didn't earn a lot of money, but I made a decision that I'm fortunate that I have a qualification. I'm able to get a decent salary. I am okay if other people, are first in the queue. That's a conscious decision that I made. I didn't, sort of shout it from the rooftops and all of that. But I knew that fairness demands that I now say, and yes, look, I grew up in Bonteheuwel. I had a few breaks. It wasn't easy. So I could have said, I worked so hard for this. Now it's my time. Mm-hmm. But I just decided that, look, it's an opportunity for us to really level the playing field. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where South Africa missed a beat. And in fact, what happened was that some of us actually, instead of showing what moral high ground we hold, we just, got involved in the frenzy, because that's really what it became.
Indeed.
It became a frenzy of gorging ourselves on the resources of this country
Definitely.
at the expense of the poor.
Definitely. And unfortunately, we do have to cut it off there. But, there's still so much to be discussed in terms of, how far does this selfless society that would have been a type of, that would have definitely benefited us coming out of that, I just think that there's so much more to discuss, but unfortunately we do have to end off. Thank you so much for taking the time out today on a public holiday.
Welcome.
We appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. Okay, bye-bye.
That was Stanley Henkeman speaking to us from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, talking about the fact that privilege wasn't actually admitted to at the end of the day. It was rather taken advantage of, and I think that was one of the serious issues that we that kind of exacerbated the problems that we already have. We do need to take an ads break. When we come back, we're opening the lines and reading SMSs, so please do stand by for that.